Well, good morning. It's good to be here again. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Dan Vallette. I'm here with my wife, Becca. We have 4 children. They're in different stages of life right now. Our oldest one is going to be finishing at Lancaster Bible College. Second one is going to be going to his junior year in Appalachian Bible College, and then we have our oldest daughter, that's Liberty, right now, and then our youngest is going to be staying here and finishing her senior year. I remember when I was a kid, I used to come to this church. Some of you guys might remember that as well. My parents were missionaries for your church all those years, and this is one of my favorite churches to come, just for the fact that you have a nice basement, so you can run around there too. And this is a great pews to play hide and go seek after everybody leaves. I'm not sure if you know that or not, but anyways, that's what us MKs used to do before when we were young. I'd like to share with you a little bit today an unusual passage for this time of year. It'll be in Matthew chapter 1 and 2. I know this is normally a passage that you would hear around Christmas time, but I want to just for us to look at one of the characters there, one of the people that I think had a lot of plans that were changed. And plans change, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I wanted to look at the life of Joseph, Mary's husband, and I think we can all agree how life changed for him in many ways. And I think we can identify with him in the sense of the way that plans were changed so rapidly. And obviously we can find that he had a game plan in life, and yet we see him, God directing him in such a way to change his plans. So we find Joseph's here. First of all, I'm hoping that you recollect the story of his life. He had met, obviously, Mary, and they had made the commitment to each other. They were obviously waiting for the time when they were going to get married. And that was they were waiting for that. And then during the waiting period, if you remember, he found out that Mary was with child, not his own. So he had made other plans now to divorce her. The plan's original, plan A was to marry Mary. Plan B now is to divorce her quietly. If you remember, through the type of a setting, even though it was as a commitment, it was almost like they were married already without getting together. The family and the future plans that he had with Mary, they were all gone. They're no longer there. Once he found out, and he was trying to make up his mind, or I should say he had made up his mind, and now he's trying to see how he puts that into effect. If we find here, as he's wrestling with this plan, in Matthew chapter 1, verses 18, and this is how the birth of Jesus came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph, but before they came together, she found that to be with a child through the Holy Spirit. Because Joseph, her husband, was a righteous man and did not want to expose her to public disgrace, he had in his mind to divorce her quietly. But after he had considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. So we see here the plans changed since the angel had appeared. Plan A, if you remember, was going to get married to Mary. Plan B, not marry her, divorce her. And then plan C now, get married to Mary and accept the child that she was carrying. So plans had changed for Joseph in a radical way. In a matter of weeks, these plans have changed. Now, if we skip over to Matthew chapter 2, we find the story of the Magi from the east. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but in South America, especially in Uruguay and Argentina, they celebrate what is called King's Day. And it's the 6th of January instead of the 25th of December. They actually make more of a big deal of the King's Day, giving gifts and stuff like that, than they actually do of Christmas. I remember my friends leaving water and grass for the camels that they were supposed to come January 6th outside, and the idea was for as they came, the camels fed on the water and ate the grass, and then they left the gifts for them, which was for, instead of Christmas, that would be the gifts for them. So I remember growing up, and my parents, obviously we celebrated Christmas over there, so I would get my gifts earlier than most of my friends would because of the 25th. So then I thought, man, I should try to milk this thing a little bit and see if I can get gifts for the 6th of January too. But there's no go there with that one. So I tried, but they said no. So, but anyways, that's a side note here. In Matthew. So we see here the whole story, of course, of the visit of the Magi and how they came to King Herod, and then they escaped from him. Sorry, in verse 13, it says, when they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, he said, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child and kill him. Verse 14. So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod, and so was fulfilled what the Lord has said through the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. So here we find him, now it's another changes of plans. Not only that he had thought that he was going to be raising this child in the place where he grew up at, but now it's going to be in a different place. Not only that, but he had to travel now to a different country. Not only that, but it was overnight, without any warning. How many of us, if I would say to you right now, hey, let's go to Chile. How many of you guys can go right now with me to Chile? Actually, you can't even get into Chile right now, as a matter of fact, because right now the borders are protected. That's what they call it right now. Before they were closed, now they're protected. But still, Americans cannot get into Chile. Unless they actually live there, they cannot get in. So even if you wanted to come with me to Chile, you still can't get in. But you imagine picking up your stuff and going to another country. Today we have the advantages of having cell phones, so we can see and look up in the internet and see where we're going and what the places are like. But back then they didn't have that. They don't have airplanes. They didn't have the abilities that we have today to be able to travel to different places and do it rather quickly. I think most of us would know what is going on in Afghanistan right now, and it's a similar situation like that for them, that they had to pick up their stuff and leave. Some of them had to do that overnight. You imagine that? That's a reality of today. But this is what he was facing at this time. This and other changes of plan. That Joseph was willing to stay, obviously, in the place where he grew up and raised his family, but now a relocation, it's on his way. He was in immediate danger. Can you imagine? From one of the most powerful governors at that time that had the power to do what he actually did after he left, to kill children. So the danger was real. And fortunately for him and his family, obviously he obeyed God in what he had asked him to do. So we see changes of plans that take place for Joseph at this time. It's interesting that in conversation of the angel with him basically is to get up right away and do something. Take the child and his mother and and escape to Egypt. And his reaction in verse 14, so he got up, took the child and his mother during the night and left for Egypt. So it was not only one of those things that he had to do possibly in the future, but it was an immediate thing. And fortunately, he obeyed right away. This means that Joseph now needed to make new plans to travel to a new country that he did not know. You know, what type of job would he have? What type of living situation? And it's not just him traveling, but it's also his family and his wife and the baby Jesus at that time. And I looked up in Google, and I'm not sure if it's correct or not, because I think the way that they have it going is this way and that way to Egypt, but it's around 450 miles from where he was at. So, and that's through desert as well. So there's certain routes that he had to take, and so we're just not sure how long it took him to get over there. But you imagine, and that's, you know, they don't have the transportation that they have nowadays to be able to get to different places, and air conditioning like we have. They would not have all that stuff. So let's try to rethink this situation for him and the change of plans that he had to go through. Not only that, but also in verse 19 and 20, it says, after Herod died, and the angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, get up, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead. Another change of plans. Again, he's now settled in Egypt, and now the angel of the Lord appeared to him again, and now it's another change of plans. What now? Go back to Israel, to the place where you came from. So we're not sure how much time it transpired between the time that he was there and then went back to Israel, but it's another change of plans. I'm sure by this time he's already settled. I'm sure he has a job and to be able to support his family, a place to stay. Now he's got to leave that behind and go back to the place where he came from. Another change of plans. Not only that, but also in verses 21 through 23, we have a new change of plan, a new change of direction as well. So he got up, it says in verse 21, looked at the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was remaining in Judah in the place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the districts of Galilee, and he went and lived in the town of Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophet, he will be called a Nazarene. So not only he went back to Israel thinking he was going to go to the same spot where he came from, now he's got to go another, looked up on Google also, 85 miles north of where he originally was from. So he can't even go back to the place where he was already. So all this changes in his life, time after time after time. And how do we see him reacting to every one of these changes in his life? Is that he would obey. He just would. The angel would say that, and he would do. I think if I was Joseph, I would probably not to go to sleep. You think, because every time you went to sleep, seems like there's a new change of plans for that. So we see him doing that just when he thought things were going good. So let's review some of the plans, the changes for him. Plan A, remember, is get married to Mary. Plan B was not marry her, divorce her quietly. Plan C was marry to marry and accept the child that she was carrying. Now the changes that Joseph took in the traveling wise, plan A, stay and raise his family in Judea. Plan B, go down to Egypt to save his family. Plan C, stay in Egypt. Plan D, go back to Israel. Plan E, skip Judea and go up north. Lots of changes in a few amount of time. Well, I want to also relate to you guys some of the changes that we've been through. They're not even close to these type of changes that he's had. But in 2020, obviously the COVID hit and all over the world, and it's the second week in March that everything got shut down over there in Chile. And what I mean shut down is that from that moment on, we went to quarantine stage 1, which means you can only leave your house twice a week for 3 hours to go shopping. So twice a week you go to Walmart, but you also got to wait in line. That's part of your 3 hours that you had to wait there with a mask on and wait for, and only one person of the household can go. I could not go with my wife. She had to go by herself. I would go somewhere else, but we were both having in the same pass. So what it is, you use your cell phone to go to a virtual police station, and you get a pass from there, and that's what, when you get accepted from that, that's your time starts then. So you only got 3 hours from there to go grocery shopping, all the places that you need to go, with the lines that are there included. So everybody's going at the same time. You might be able to get stuff. Sometimes you spend like an hour or more in line before you can actually get in there and get food. And even in the store itself, they were hurrying you up, saying just get the essentials, get the basics. And even in some places, they have certain things, certain places shut out that you cannot get to. Like for instance, some of the clothes was not essential to buy, so you can't do that. Some of the products were not considered essential, so you couldn't buy those. And you could only buy certain amounts of I think sugar and milk and other stuff that was essential. You could only bring so much of that as well. So that's what we were faced at the beginning of this pandemic. And then we came over here. The flight over here was great, and we had space in between the seats when we came up here. That's the longest probably that I've ever wore a mask, because you have to wear the mask not only in the airport but also in the flight itself, which is 8 hours, just the flight itself. So, and we had a layover also in Atlanta, so that meant a couple more hours of wearing a mask at that time. We got over here in June with the idea of dropping off Vanessa for college. She was going to start in August, and then we're head back. But things got worse and worse in Chile, and ministry-wise, we could not. The camp was not open. Nobody could go out to camp to work or to have retreats there. There's no transportation going back and forth to that area. So we asked for an extension till December, and we were able to do a lot of things that we normally don't do. One, we were praying for somebody to take our daughter to college, and that someone was us. Now we were hoping that somebody would be nice to her to buy some other, like a fan, I don't know, extension cord, all this stuff that sometimes you don't think about that you would need right off the bat. But God was able to lead us to do that. My wife was taught Spanish during the school year as well. The other change of plans that when I was going to Chile in January, but I got COVID, so I couldn't go. That's another change of plans for us. I got COVID. I didn't even know I had it. I took the test, and that's when I realized that I did have it. So that's another 2 weeks before I could actually go down there in February. The idea for me is I was going to go back in April to start the construction, but then the country shut down and the border shut down. So all the month of April, all the months of June, July, the whole country, May's in there too, right? Yeah, I forgot about May. April, May, June, July. Yeah, so 4 months. Shut down, totally. So nobody could go back and forth to even work at the camp. I had tickets already. I had to move them from April to May, from May to July, and then now hopefully September. That's when we're hoping to go back down there again. So changes of plans all this time. And how do we deal with that? How do we deal with the changes of plans? I'm not sure about you, but I'm a person that likes to plan ahead. I want to plan ahead, but at this point I can't plan ahead. So I have to rely on what God has for me. It changes our plans. Now, what causes fear? Let's go back. Because in chapter 1, in verse 20, it says, "But after he considered this, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid." Do not be afraid. First thing that he told him, do not be afraid. What are things that we are afraid of? What are things that causes fears in our lives? Let me suggest to you 3 different things. You might come up with more. The one is a what if. What if this happens? What if that happens? We normally put ourselves in the worst case scenario, don't we? What if this happens? What if that happens? Possibly this might happen, should happen, possibly will happen. But normally it's not the least case scenario, but it's always the worst case scenario that we always put ourselves in. And the fear. There's a statistic also, I mean, you can do anything you want with those things, but they do say that 93% of the things that we fear never come to fruition. 93%. So how many times have we wasted nights of no sleep for stuff that could, might, possibly, maybe will happen, and it never did happen? I think we all can attest to that, right? Things that, oh man, this is going to be terrible, and then, oh, maybe it's not that bad. So things that could happen, the what ifs. The other fear factor for us is not be in control. We do not like not having the wheel on the steering wheel, our hands on the steering wheel. Wishing that we were back in control of decisions that sometimes are made for us in a larger or smaller scale, but frankly, we've never had control of things. Secret. I'm not sure how many of you guys had the opportunity, and some of you guys might in the future, to help your daughters especially to drive a car. The fear of not controlling that steering wheel, it's real, believe me. It is. Especially when doing parallel parking. I mean, you want to help them with the steering, and you want to, and you're always hitting the brake also. I'm not sure if you noticed that on the other side, yeah. The control. Our daughters, both of them, we were very fortunate to actually have them do their tests during COVID. Because what happened during COVID, the instructor does not come into the vehicle, they stay outside, and I have to stay inside with them. So, I can actually help them. It's a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, stop, 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 stop. So that helps, you know. But I'm not in control still. I'm trying to help, you know, but I'm not in control. Sometimes we find ourselves with God also. God is in control, and we're trying to help God, don't we? We're trying to hold on to that wheel, trying to direct Him in the things that we need to do in life. The last one of the fear situation, the what ifs, the not in control, and the other one is not knowing what is next. What scares us is what is next. Let's take take the example of the vehicle on the road. Sometimes what's next, it might not even might be off road, might not even be a road there yet. But the fear that even though fearing what tomorrow might bring at a personal level, at a regional level, maybe at a county level, national or international level, that we do not control. The things that we don't know about. We can, we ask ourselves, how can we not fear when the what ifs they're not in control, and I don't know what's coming next creep into our lives? How can all that stuff be there and we still are fearful? The thing that kept Joseph awake, if you remember, was in his mind, it was God's plan. He didn't know what to do with Mary and the birth of Jesus. And that kept him awake. But who sent that to him? God is the one that sent that to him in his life. Let me propose something to you. God has a good plan for you. God has a good plan for you. Trusting God that He has a good plan for us. Not for us to manage God's plan or to control it or possess it, but God is the one that has a plan. Trusting that He will do that. It's a settled conviction that God has a good plan for our lives. And all these changes that happened in the life of Joseph, God knew that that's what was going to happen. And that was His plan all along. It's just that we need to discover what God's plan is. He uses our plan, and it's good for us to be planning ahead. It really is. But sometimes our plans are not in God's plans. Or sometimes they are. Or sometimes they need to be tweaked a little bit. And that's what happened with Joseph and his life. It was God's plan. God's got a good plan. God's plan is better than our plan. I know, shocker as it is. You know, God can plan ahead much better than we can. He's got a better perspective on things than we do. In John chapter 16 and verse 33, it says, I have told you these things so that I in you and have peace. In the world you have trouble, but take heed, take heart. I have overcome the world. He has overcome the world. Now God turns our plans into good plans according to His will. Our plan to go back, obviously, to Chile was delayed because God had a better plan. God had a much better plan than we did. Our plan originally, if you remember, was just to go back in July, I'm sorry. Just 2 months and go back. But God's plan was better. The plan that He had for us is to spend more time with our family, which we normally don't get to do. In August, we're already in Chile. My wife would have been teaching in a Christian school in English over there. We would have not had the opportunity to take our daughter to college, for instance. We would not have the opportunity like we had this year to be able to watch our son senior year playing tennis in college. I would not have the opportunity to go visit my son that, if you remember, his memory was lost and he got it all back all at once, and he did not know how to deal with that. And I had the opportunity to go visit him because I was here to do that. We were to visit back as parents in Minnesota. They're both aging parents with some illnesses. We were to see them as well. That was God's plan, not our plan. Our desire, obviously, it is and still is to be down in Chile, to be doing His work over there. But His plan is different than our plan. We're making plans to go in September. We're hoping to, but it might not be God's plan. God's plan, God has got a good plan, and it's much better than the plan that we have. So we need to rejoice in what He gives us. We need to lean into it. We are not in control of His plans, even though sometimes we would like to be in control of what comes our way. Do you believe in the sovereignty of God? I would imagine all of us here do. But do you really believe in the sovereignty of God? That means that God is all-powerful, all-knowing. All wisdom is with him. So he knows better than we do. He knows everything. He's got a better plan than what we have. Much better. But if we believe truly in the sovereignty of God, if someone watches our lives and how we react to changes of plans, the bad news that comes to our lives or the good news, does our lives proclaim or reflect that God has a good plan in our lives? Can people say that about us? Man, God has got a good plan in that person's life because the way that he's handling the changes of plans. And believe me, if you don't know this by now, there's always going to be a plan changes. Always. I remember when we were younger, not us, but our kids were younger, 45 minutes from our house in Uruguay, there was a nice hot bath that we would actually take visitors when they would come. We would go there not often, but whenever visitors would come, that's when we would go. But a couple times we were ready to go to the hot baths, but we would not say anything to the kids until we're actually going to go to the hot baths because plans change. And if we would tell them that we're going to hot baths, believe me, they would not leave us alone until we actually were there, going there. So a couple times I remember we were almost ready to go. I was almost ready to tell them, and it started pouring rain. And I was like, oh man, I just cannot go today. So fortunately we didn't say anything to them, so they didn't know that plans had changed. But plans had changed, and they do change. And for you and for me, they change every day. Sometimes little stuff, sometimes big stuff. But plans do change. And we need to be flexible enough to realize that God has a good plan. Sometimes we can be tempted to just close our eyes and say, well, everything's going to be okay, right? Oh, everything's going to be fine. I just close my eyes and, oh, the Lord's going to work it out anyways. He's got a good plan. That could be a temptation for you. But is that what God told Joseph? To just keep sleeping. Listen, somebody's coming to kill your family, but you just keep sleeping away. It's fine. God will take care of everything. God's got a good plan. Is that what he said to him? No. He says, get up. Do something. Go. So we can't just say, oh, everything will take care of itself. God has a good plan, but it involves us in doing things too. God is the one that guides us and directs us, and he's got a good plan. Do not fear, but get active in God's doing. He wants us to be a part of what he is doing around us and in this world as well. We know the things that we need to do at times, and we just don't do it. We just don't. But God has got a good plan. He wants us to be part of that too. Today, there are many voices preaching fear into our lives. We need to guard ourselves from being controlled by fear. Remember, the things that, the what ifs. Boy, we could go down that rabbit trail, for a long time. The what if this would happen, what if that would happen. Or not being in control of things, or we don't know what is next. So we need to be aware of things that fear. But God, has God called us to be fearful? No. God has called us to live by faith, right? To trust in him. He doesn't call us to a life of fear. I mean, you could, if you're controlled by fear, you would not be here today, actually, if you're fearful of everything. Anything can happen at any time. But God has called us not to be controlled by fear, but live by faith. We need to decide to live by faith based on who God is and what He is doing and what He has done in the past. God has got a good plan. We just need to discover what it is and go with it. God is at work around us in this church and with Christians. And God never said it was going to be an easy plan, a comfortable plan, but He has a good plan for us. So what is God doing in your life today? What plans does God have for you? And remember, plans always change. But looking back on things, if you look back on things, you say, man, that really worked out really good. Not what I was expecting, not what I would have chosen. Same with the life of Joseph. I'm sure he would have chosen to be married to Mary after he found out, but then even travel away from the places where he grew up, and then not even go back to the places where he grew up. That's all in God's plan. God meant it for good. God has got a good plan for our lives. We just need to discover what it is and be able to willing to follow Him. Let's have a word of prayer. Lord, thank you for today.